Audience? Hmm? We're going to listen to Jen talk.
In today's world, 1.04% of school-age children are identified with some level of intellectual deficiency. This number has surprisingly increased steadily over time. The prevalent rate of students classified as ID varies greatly depending on how each state defines ID, along with the amount of students whom are actually tested and identified with this problem. Due to all the variance among states, intellectual deficiency has become a generic term that represents a widely diverse group of individuals. There are several types or levels of ID, which are historically labeled as mild, moderate, severe, and profound deficiency. At each individual level, the student receives a specialized type of support that caters to their abilities and needs. The former term mental retardation is frowned upon by many people, even though it replaced many of the negative labels that were given prior. Mentally retarded was replaced with intellectual deficient, but there are other terms now that refer to the same issue. Developmentally delayed, or DD, is one of the more broad terms used today. Intellectual deficiency is a term used to describe a level of functioning significantly below what is considered average. Many students are labeled ID for minor reasons, such as a slight behavioral issue, or because their brain functions just below average for their age group. This level of ID can be treated with substitutions in the classroom and certain exercises at home in order to function at a relatively normal level. On the other hand, the more serious cases of ID take more time and understanding to develop a strategy for supporting the student. Many cases of ID are linked to genetics. In these instances, the cause is a genetic defect such as an abnormal gene, gene mutation, or chromosomal defect. Just one extra missing or faulty gene or chromosome can cause a birth defect that could lead to ID. Children can be born with normal intelligence but develop a deficiency because of childhood illness or injuries. Cooperation and communication are keys to success with an ID student. The guardians and the school must share a common goal for the student. In order for the goal to be achieved, both the guardians and the school have an IEP meeting to establish a plan for success. Developing a plan can only be done after testing the student for several different components of ID, such as intellectual functioning, adaptive behavior, and developmental period. It is important to identify whether the student has trainable or educable deficiency. Although these terms are inherently stereotypical and prejudicial, it is imperative to know the student's ability to comprehend and the ability to take the material being presented and incorporate it into everyday life. Though many people believe that ID is related to the level of intelligence someone has, this is not so. IQ alone is not sufficient for a diagnosis of ID. There are several components to consider. Intellectual functioning is intended as a broad summation of cognitive abilities, capacity to learn, problem-solving abilities, etc. This component is measured primarily by an IQ test, resulting in a score of 70 or below. Unfortunately, some students will score a few points too high, but still have special needs to be considered depending on the school system. These students may either be put in special education courses or in some cases left in general education classes because of funding issues within the school. These students are classified as borderline ID and may never receive proper levels of support because they are just outside the criteria. Adaptive behavior, another defining characteristic of ID, represents the degree in which the student has matured, learned, established independence, and social responsibility for the student's age level. The degree at which a student develops adaptive behavior ultimately shapes the type of life he or she will be able to live. The ability to adapt to different social environments has proven to be a defining characteristic for the type of job, if any, in which the student will be able to hold successfully. Classification by levels of support is not derived from level of the disability, but from the level of support, thus focusing on needs rather than deficits. Support refers to the resources and strategies that aim to promote the development, education, interests, and the personal well-being of the individual. The types of support are not able to be summarized based on the level of support, but the amount of support one may receive. Students with ID need help with paying attention, socio-behavioral considerations, language development, cognitive development, and many other things. When teachers expect great things from their students, the students tend to achieve great things. Therefore, establishing appropriate but high goals is important. A student's level of support may also influence where he or she will be educated. If the student is put in special education all day, this will most likely prevent the student from being able to develop adequate social behavior. It is of great benefit to identify ID earlier in order to begin planning their education and life beyond high school. A transition plan is the plan that is created by a group of people consisting of specialists, teachers, and guardians to assure the overall well-being of the person with ID after high school. Transition plans must start early, and planning must be comprehensive, establishing a balance of what is ideal and what is possible. The transition planning process should be viewed as a capacity-building activity. Curriculum and instruction for students with ID typically have 4 main goals: productive employment, independence and self-sufficiency, life skills competence, and the opportunity to participate successfully within the school and community. Everyone, including students who are ID, is entitled to a free, appropriate public education. In the case of a student with ID, the curriculum will focus on the subsequent environments for which the student will enter when they exit school. It is imperative for the teacher to know how to cope with a student with ID. The teacher should first check the IEP, the Individual Education Plan, to review the goals and objectives. Then they must be mindful that the student's attention span is short and memory capacity is below average. Therefore, expectations should be reasonable, short, simple, specific, and then repeat, review, and rehearse all instruction. Finally, test for the presented information to ensure it was received and can be used. The desired behavior must be taught because it is likely that the expected behavior is unknown from the deficit in adaptive behavior. Students with ID are capable of learning and leading somewhat normal lives, and proper support is needed to accomplish such a task. Thank you.